evening, this is News Watch on Wednesday the 2nd of March, and these are tonight's main stories. The TGWU holds a public meeting, but the rally is not supported by representative bodies. The leader of the opposition says the Chief Minister is unable to distinguish between his failures and criticise him of them after the event. And the government confirms it is not importing refuse to be burnt at the incinerator. Support from the representative organisations for today's public meeting called by the TGWU collapsed. Notwithstanding this, the union went ahead with the meeting. The GST opposition party attended the meeting, but at the request of the union, opposition leader Peter Caruana did not give an address, given that no other political party or body would be participating. The GSLP government withdrew its participation yesterday evening, claiming the meeting offered a platform for the continuation of a scurrilous attack by the GST opposition. This, it said, was aimed at discrediting and undermining the legally and democratically elected government of Gibraltar. The GNP, the GGCA, IPMS and the Teachers Association also withdrew their support. The Chamber of Commerce decided during the course of the day not to attend the meeting. It's called on Gibraltar's leaders and representative bodies to set aside their differences and work for the good of Gibraltar as a whole. It has restated that the best way forward is by establishing a working forum representative of all bodies to formulate the joint initiative. The National Party had called for the meeting's postponement as it believed it would lead to disunity rather than unity. The GNP supports the principle of a national Salvation Front and initiatives towards this objective. Susan Clifton-Tucker reports on today's events.
The public meeting started just after 5:30 and was attended by about 1,000 people. They were addressed by TGWU branch officer Jaime Netto and his father Jose Netto, the district branch officer of the TGWU. Both stated that unless there is some financial breakthrough, Gibraltar will face economic collapse. Heavy criticism was levied at the Chief Minister for in the past using, influencing and manipulating the TGWU. He said that he has fought hard to make the union independent, operating in the interests of the working class people of Gibraltar. The Chief Minister, he said, had closed doors to them, which he had promised would always remain open. He highlighted the case of the Building and Works Department and the non-existence of consultation by the government with the union before allowing the private company SOS to carry out painting and decorating work on government-owned properties. Jaime Netto added that people were afraid to speak out in Gibraltar, but that he would not be intimidated. Gibraltar, he said, is facing very serious problems and is in a critical state. I asked him how he felt about today's meeting.
Well, I would say the judgment I get is there must have been here about 1,500. I'm not going to say astronomical figures. I'm very factual in what I'm saying. The figure in itself is quite good, taking into account various factors. One is the fact that maliciously some people from some quarters have been phoning at the place of work saying that the meeting has been cancelled when obviously the meeting was not cancelled. And the fact that the other representative bodies have not turned out for whatever the particular reasons. But yes, there has been a whole machinery put to try and sabotage this particular meeting. So taking that into account, to have 1,500 members here is good.
You've been very strong in your address today and you've accused the Chief Minister of lying and clouding the real issues.
Well, lying because if you take, for instance, the dispute in the Buildings and Works, what he says to us in one meeting is one thing, but what he comes public afterwards is completely lie, in the sense that if you recall what he said in his press release, that there was no foundation at all for the anger and the frustration of members who gave cause to the problem. What gave cause to the problem was the fact that he never consulted the members, which is what he's promised to do, and he never do.
You also mentioned economic collapse, that if we don't have a financial breakthrough soon, that Gibraltar could face ruin.
Absolutely, and we have to be very, very serious about it. For a very long time, ourselves and our colleagues in IPMS, we've said, if there isn't a breakthrough in terms of economic activity and job generations in Gibraltar, if you add to that the recession in the private sector that we have, and the question of the job losses in the MOD and the size of the job loss in the MOD, I can tell you, and I wish I'd be wrong in my analysis, that the lack of income tax and social insurance coming from the MOD will mean the collapse of the Gibraltar economy, and that's the last thing that we want, and that is precisely why we said that despite all of our differences, despite of all our different views, we, all the representative bodies of Gibraltar, have to unite under one platform to get our act together, not for us, not to save the image of any particular one, not to share the failures of anyone, but because if we don't do it, and if we have a collapse of Gibraltar, to try and pick it up, the ashes will become a lot worse than what it is now.
A number of organisations and bodies actually withdrew their support from the rally today because they felt that the situation was becoming too personal and politicised.
Well, I wouldn't say too personal. I think what I have been seeing, that the argument would have been politicised. Well, I mean, I'm not going to pass judgment on the other ones. I mean, that is their view, and that's the end of the story. I have to say what I said at the very beginning of your first question, that is that there has been a manoeuvre to sabotage this meeting, and to be honest with the people of Gibraltar, the problems which we are facing and the magnitude of the problem we are facing. Look, I for one am prepared to stand up and be counted and put my views, and at least I'll be there, and when people have to judge me, they can say that I've done my best to put Gibraltar first.
Mr. Caruana, are you disappointed at not having had the opportunity to speak here today, to address the rally?
I, of course, Susan, have had the opportunity to speak. I am here. I was ready, able and willing to speak. This was a platform convened by the unions in order to try and bring the political parties together on a united forum in developing solutions to Gibraltar's problems. That is the invitation that was extended to the political parties. That is the invitation that I accepted, and if Mr. Bossano chooses to describe this event as anything other than that, then he is describing a different invitation to the one that I've received. The point is that the other two political parties, one that claims to be a party of opposition, followed the government's lead and chose not to come. That rendered the GSD the only political party left on the platform, and I was asked by the Transport and General Workers Union in those circumstances, of being the only political party that would be on the platform, not to address the meeting in order to protect the Transport and General Workers Union from the quite unjustified allegation that there is some political conspiracy between the Transport and General Workers Union and the GSD, which I'm very happy to say now here for the record, and in defence of the Transport and General Workers Union, does not exist.
And the leader of the opposition, Peter Caruana, says the comments made by the Chief Minister on Newswatch last night, accusing him of fostering mistrust, are an example of Mr. Bossano's pseudo-patriotism. Speaking on Radio Gibraltar this morning, Mr. Caruana said the Chief Minister is unable to distinguish between his failures and criticism of them after the event. Commenting on the network of government companies and their subsidiaries, Mr. Caruana said the government is seeking to make a virtue of unaccountability. He says if the government is not willing to reveal the financial details of the various companies, then they should be unwound. Although a search of the company's registry will reveal who the directors are, financial details are not available. Mr. Caruana added that the British government sought and has been given information on the government companies by the Governor and the Financial and Development Secretary. The leader of the opposition says the Chief Minister's price for unity is the political castration of other parties. This would leave Gibraltar as a one-party state in which Mr. Bossano could do what he wants, how he wants and when he wants. Following a call from the Deputy Leader of the GSD, Ernest Brito, for the government to explain the situation in respect of the importation of rubbish to be burnt at the incinerator. The government has said it is not importing any form of refuse for the incinerator plant from Germany or anywhere else. The government says the refuse is imported by the owners of the incinerator, who've been granted a monthly license to import refuse pellets. The material is subject to the national authority from the country of origin certifying it is free from hazardous waste and certification from the supplier as to the composition of the material. In view of the doubts raised by the GSD about these imports, the government says it will be investigating the matter further. The government press statement says the importers, the owners of the incinerator, are represented by the chambers of Mr. Caruana, the leader of the opposition, who is probably in a position to explain the situation to his deputy. Still to come on tonight's Newswatch, the STGG says the British government has discarded its sense of justice and fair play, and Gibraltar's cricket team back on the rock after participating in the 1994 ICC trophy. That'll be in just a couple of minutes. Stay with us.